you so much for all showing up. And a quick note to all the folks in the crowd who disagree. I hope that nobody walks out. I hope that nobody shouts down, because this is a free country, and I'm hoping to have a fun conversation with everybody walking out. Walking out just demonstrates closed-mindedness, and shouting down just demonstrates ideological fascism. So first of all, thank you to Young America's Foundation. Thank you to all the students who brought me here. Thanks to Fred R. Allen for sponsoring this lecture series. Today, we're going to talk about all of these stupid, nonsensical words that your professors and administrators and some of your fellow students like to use to stifle debate and shut down opposition and excuse violence. That's what the left on campus, unfortunately, has been doing for generations, since the 1960s and 1970s, when all the left's ideological forebears took over the administrative buildings and became the professors and administrators who people are now trying to have fired because they're not sufficiently left. So today, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through, and we're going to debunk and talk about 5 of the left's favorite terms on campus. And these are all stupid and counterproductive terms. The first is diversity, the second is white privilege, the third is trigger warnings, the fourth is microaggressions, and the fifth is safe spaces. So we will hit fun. Now, trigger warning. This may make some folks a little bit upset. Fortunately for me, I don't care. Let's jump right in. Let's start with diversity. So, everybody loves to talk about the merits of diversity on campus. Diversity is, in this view, basically what you see on the admissions folder, on the admissions packet. The picture that they stage where they get 5 kids of varying races and put them together to demonstrate just how diverse they are, the United Colors of Manhattan and such. A few weeks back, I spoke at California State University in Los Angeles. And a few days before I was scheduled to speak, the president of the university decided that it would not be appropriate for me to speak, so he did what leftists are fond of doing. He canceled me. And here's what he wrote. He issued a statement, and this is what the statement said. It said, "After careful consideration, I have decided that it will be best for our campus community if we reschedule Ben Shapiro's appearance for a later date," a date that did not exist, "so that we can arrange for him to appear as part of a group of speakers with differing viewpoints on diversity. Such an event will better represent our university's dedication to the free exchange of ideas and the value of considering multiple viewpoints." So, obviously, the university's dedication to the free exchange of ideas involves canceling the event. And their consideration of multiple viewpoints involved shutting down mine, considering I was the only conservative on campus and I was just a visitor. So, that's how diversity works on the left, unfortunately. Diversity is designed because diversity of thought does not matter to the left. In fact, it's counterproductive to the left. The left believes that diversity of thought is threatening, that it threatens feelings, that it threatens perceptions of the patriarchy and capitalism that they need a monopoly in order to achieve, and so they have to shut down anybody who opposes. And this is why you see protesters blocking doors and barricading doors, and this is why you see people being shouted down on college campuses. And this, again, has long ideological roots. There's a professor from the 1960s, his name was Shapiro. He's from the Frankfurt School, and you won't know him because you're young and you presumably are spending your time in life doing something useful. And this guy was not only useless as a human being, he was counterproductive. But Shapiro is most famous for saying, "Make love, not war." One of these stupider slogans in human history. And beyond that idea, it's mostly stupid idea, even stupider idea than make love, not war, as though the two are mutually exclusive, is the idea of what he called liberating tolerance. Right? So again, these kind of keywords, liberating tolerance. What he said is that there were 2 types of tolerance. There was repressive tolerance, and repressive tolerance was things like free speech. How is free speech repressive? Well, free speech is just a value that's held by the patriarchy, it's just a value that's held by the powerful, and it gives the patina of legitimacy to all views, but in reality it's only forwarding one view, namely the view that freedom of speech is good. Therefore, we need to get past repressive tolerance, which gives people a feeling of freedom without actually having freedom, and we need to get to what is called liberating tolerance. And liberating tolerance, he said, would mean intolerance against movements from the right and tolerance of movements from the left. So tolerance only extended as far as his side of the political aisle, because true tolerance can only exist when there is an ideological monopoly. So, if the left... Oh, there we go. Doing yeoman's work from my perspective. I appreciate it. Thank you.
By clapping, you're not being tolerant either. No, I'm here.
I think everybody on this campus should have unqualified approval of their activities. So if they decide to leave and they want to be cheered, then we should cheer them. I would prefer if they stick around. If they feel like leaving, then again, we wouldn't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
You're being intolerant yourself, though.
I'm sorry?
By saying other people's opinions are stupid, you're just being intolerant of other people's opinions yourself.
No. Intolerant, no. So the difference is I'm not walking out on anybody else's opinion or trying to shut it down. Well, wait, because I know there are a bunch of other people who want to come in. So if people want to come in, again, I operate under the assumption that in a safe space, which is called America, free speech should be allowed to flourish. If other people want to come in, we'll wait for them to come in.
Safe space.
What was that?
I thought you were going to say safe space.
I am. It's called irony. So wait for a moment while others apparently outside want to get in.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if we said. Are there more people coming? All right, so we'll wait for everybody else who wants to come in. Are there more folks coming or is that it? A lot more? Okay, well, wait a minute. Should we do a sing-along or? We can do chanting.
Crowd is now full again.
Okay, I think we get started. So for those who just entered, brief recap of the speech. I suggested that the left heartily dislikes ideological diversity, and to prove my point, half the audience got up and left. Okay, so to pick up from there, there's only one kind of diversity that the left truly cares about. It obviously isn't diversity of thought. It's diversity of race, right? This is the only thing that the left seems to care about when it comes to diversity. Racial diversity. But racial diversity, if you're a decent human being, ought not mean anything, because it turns out that virtue means something. Being a decent human being means something. If you don't care about virtue, but you do care about skin color, you are definitionally a racist. Unfortunately, the left is racist. And they make themselves feel good by suggesting that how you behave is irrelevant. All that matters is that you have the multiracial TV game. You know, the game doesn't exist that much in real life, but it's the kind of game. The game that always robs the liquor store on TV. It's one Native American guy, one Hispanic guy, one black guy, and a lesbian. And it's the most diverse game you've ever seen. It never exists. But this is the kind of diversity that the left seeks. It doesn't matter if you're robbing a liquor store, which would seem to me the key component. but it matters that they are racially or sexual or diverse in terms of sexual orientation. That's the part that matters. So what underlies this worship for diversity of skin color, which, for my money, is utterly silly, because again, I don't care if you're black, white, or green, I just care that you're a good person. And I think all good people should feel that. Well, the left believes in equality of outcome. This is what they call fairness, right? Not equality of opportunity, which says that if you behave, you play by the rules, you do the right things, you'll succeed. That would be equality of opportunity. Equality of outcome suggests no matter how you behave, we should all end up in the same place. The left believes that the philosophy of individualism is actually insufficient, because that doesn't result in equality of outcome. If we're all individuals free to pursue our dreams and behave how we see fit, some people are going to succeed and some people are going to fail. And what happens if members of a particular racial group, an arbitrarily defined racial group, what happens if members of that particular racial group tend to be less wealthy than members of another racial group? Well, according to the left's lights, this means something deeply unfair has happened. They don't have to know anything else. If there's a person in a room with $4 and a person in that same room with $1, the person with $4 must have done something unfair to the person with $1. Because equality of outcome is the only thing that matters. In the end, it's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter if the person with $1 blew all their money on drugs and the person with $4 runs a business. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is one person's rich, one person's poor, right? The Bernie Sanders philosophy of money also applies to the left's philosophy of group identity. So if one group is less monetarily, financially successful in the United States, that must be a result of some inherent exploitation by the more successful group. And this is what we call white privilege, right? The idea is that if any groups are doing badly in the United States, except for poor white people, they don't count, but any other group in the United States, that is the result of white privilege, which is an incredibly seductive idea. It's a really seductive idea for a lot of folks. And it's seductive because it gives people a feeling of unearned moral superiority and virtue without actually having to do anything good. It's really nice. So if you are a black person and you feel like you're not succeeding in life, it's a lot easier to say white privilege is responsible for my non-success than maybe I made some bad decisions. Right? If you are a Hispanic person, the same thing holds true. And if you are a white person, well, you're kind of crap out of luck a little bit, because the fact is that no matter what, if you don't succeed, it's because you didn't succeed on your own merits, because obviously you've benefited from white privilege. And if you do succeed, you've only succeeded because of white privilege. Fortunately, they give you a way out. There is a way out. The way out is that you must repent. Right? Full-style Elmer Gantry repentance. You must grab a scourge, and you must take off your shirt, and you must whip yourself, and you must declare, mea culpa, maxima culpa. I and my ancestors are responsible for all suffering in Western civilization, and indeed on Earth, because I happen to have less melanin in my skin. This is particularly true for white, heterosexual, cisgender males. Ladies apparently are left out, even though they're the majority of the population. Sorry, dudes, it's really our problem. And the problem is that these white, heterosexual, cisgender males have constructed this evil, terrible, horrible system, particularly the Founding Fathers, who are a bunch of white, cisgender, heterosexual males. Right? All those people, they're terrible people, and they designed a horrible system of oppression and grievance in order specifically to keep down minorities. And this is inescapable. If you're born white, you're born into white privilege. If you're not born white, or if you're not born white, heterosexual, cisgender male, then you are born into a grievance culture. You are born into legitimate grievances against the system. There's only one problem with this. In modern-day America, it's not true historically, but this is true now. In modern-day America, this is not true. White privilege is a ghost. And what the left wants is they want us all ghost hunting. Okay, I'm not a ghostbuster. I can't hunt white privilege with you. I can't hunt institutional racism with you. If you show me somebody doing something racist, I'll stand alongside you. If you show me a racist piece of legislation, I will stand alongside you. But I'm not going to go along with the idea that everybody's failures in life are due to some ghost in the machine called white privilege or institutional racism. That is a cop-out. Here's the truth. In a free country like the United States, the decisions that you make, I mean, this is the hope of the United States, and it's true. The decisions that you make are going to impact your level of success. If you make good, responsible decisions, you're going to have a much more successful life than if you do the opposite. And this has nothing to do with race. Okay, whites are not born with a genetic predisposition to do the right thing. That's certainly not true. And blacks are not born with a genetic predisposition to do the wrong thing. That's obviously not true either. Right? That would be racist. Now, this is not to assume there is no privilege. There is privilege in the United States. For example, it turns out there's great privilege in being born into a two-parent household. This is the greatest privilege in the United States. If you're born into a two-parent family, then you are privileged. You're experiencing parental privilege if you have two parents in the home. And it's true for every race, all the races. The poverty rate among two-parent black families is 7% in the United States. The poverty rate among single-parent white families is 22%. What happened to white privilege? Why aren't those whites in single-parent families doing better than the blacks in two-parent families? Because it turns out that having two parents is an actual privilege and race is not. The single greatest predictor of intergenerational poverty is single motherhood. White privilege is not responsible for anyone, any man, black, white, or green, getting a girl pregnant and then taking off. He's responsible for that. He's a jackass. Okay, that has nothing to do with white privilege. Here's another privilege that's relevant to our discussion today. How about the not committing crimes privilege? It turns out that one of the best ways to lead a successful life in the United States is not to commit crimes. The higher criminality rate in the black community is not the result of some evil white skin privilege system. It's the result of individuals being criminals. There are not white people forcing black people to kill other black people in black areas of the United States. Okay, what's going on in Baltimore right now is not the result of white privilege, not when more than half the population is black, the majority of the police force is black, the police commissioner is black, the mayor is black, and the Attorney General, for that matter, the Attorney General and the President of the United States are black. Hard to blame what's going on in Baltimore on the evil white people who don't run the system. Okay, the fact is this. When it comes to policing, for example, the idea is that the police are the one, they're disproportionately arresting people. This is untrue. They are not disproportionately arresting people. By Department of Justice statistics, the reported crime rate in particular communities is precisely the same as the actual arrest rate in those same communities, and it's minorities who are reporting the crimes in black communities. When police do come into contact with black folks to take the Black Lives Matter movement, their silly cause and propaganda, police are actually less likely to kill black people than white people in confrontational circumstances, according to a study from Peter Moskos of John Jay College of Criminal Justice at City University of New York. As early as 1994, the Department of Justice surveyed felony cases in the country's 75 largest urban areas and found lower felony prosecution rates for blacks than for whites. The biggest problem the black community has with crime is there aren't enough police officers in their community, not that there are too many police officers in their community. And as for racial profiling, one of the examples people like to use is the so-called racist stop and frisk system in New York City. Here's a quick statistic from the stop and frisk system in New York City that communist moron Bill de Blasio just got rid of. Okay, from January to June 2008, 98% of all gun assailants in the city of New York were Hispanic or black. In the stop and frisk statistics, 85% Hispanic or black. In other words, the police were disproportionately stopping and frisking people who are not Hispanic or black. How about speeding? How about driving while black? That's another favorite one. The police are looking out for black folks just to pull them over for no apparent reason. Well, the DOJ and New Jersey Attorney General commissioned a study in the 1990s because it turned out that there were a disproportionate number of black drivers being pulled over. Turns out there's a reason for that. There were a disproportionate number of black drivers speeding. It turns out that blacks were 25% of all speeders and 23% of the drivers who were actually stopped for speeding. How about sentencing disparities? The idea that if a black person gets convicted of a crime and a white person gets convicted of the same crime, the black person goes to jail for longer. But when you get rid of the confounding factors, when you get rid of past criminal history, the nature of the crime, when you get rid of all of those things, it turns out that the sentencing disparities largely disappeared. And as for the disparity between, the favorite now is the disparity between crack cocaine sentencing and powder cocaine sentencing. The disparity was brought about in the first place because crack cocaine is more addictive, more easily available in the inner city, and the people who originally pushed the sentencing disparity were black Congress people from inner cities who were sick of watching their communities ravaged by crack. But all of this is apparently white privilege, all of it. Doesn't matter. And actually, as long as we're going this way, as long as we're going with the left's version of what equality constitutes, maybe we're living in an era of Asian privilege, considering that Asians are about to overtake white folks as the highest earning subgroup in the United States. Maybe it's all those Asian founders who created an Asian system for the benefit of all the Asian people. Right, back in the days when the SAT was at 1600, when when old fogies like me were taking it, like 5 years ago. When that happened, Princeton University did a study, and they showed that black folks in the United States were receiving on average 230 points bonus on the SAT, and Asians were being penalized by 50 points. So it must be that Asian privilege all at work again. It turns out that when you accuse a group, any group, of racism and privilege without evidence, that is indeed a horrible racism. The accusation of white privilege without evidence is a horribly racist accusation that puts a burden on white people they can never overcome because it's false. Now, there is one problem. The problem is that if you believe in the idea of individualism and that people should make their own decisions and bear the consequences of their own decisions, that's not good enough because, again, you're not going to come up with equality of outcome. You just get equality of opportunity. So if you can't get rid of inequality in outcome, what do? Well, you decide to come up with a different metric for equality. So the new metric for equality won't be economic success or life success or job success. The new metric will be feeling success, right? Everyone's feelings must be protected. We all have to feel special. That's the most important thing. And so we need trigger warnings to warn people in case they're going to be offended, in case something bad is about to happen to them, in case you're going to talk about a controversial topic. Everybody has to feel equally happy. Of course, the only way to make everybody equally happy is to make sure that basically all spice is taken out of life and nobody says anything that could possibly offend anyone else. You can't say anything that's factual that offends people. Right? There's an article from the Harvard Crimson a couple of days ago, and a student wrote this. In a class I attended earlier this semester, a large portion of the first meeting was devoted to compiling a list of rules for class discussion. A student contended that as a woman, she would be unable to sit across from a student who declared that he was strongly against abortion, and the other students in the seminar vigorously defended this declaration while the professor remained silent. Because obviously we wouldn't want someone's feelings to be hurt by a different perspective. This is why people walk out of seminars, right? This is why people leave. Which, by the way, is pathetic. And then beyond that, once you move beyond trigger warnings, the next step is microaggression. So, if someone doesn't receive their trigger warning and they've been microaggressed, if you say something to them that they find subjectively offensive, it doesn't actually have to be offensive, it's just subjectively offensive, right? It makes them feel bad, then you've committed a microaggression. There's only one problem. The language of microaggression suggests what the problem is. It isn't offensive speech or things you just don't like, it's an aggression. It's an aggression. And aggression is to be met with aggression, right? In normal life, if someone punches you in the face, you punch them back. So if someone commits a microaggression, then you have to commit a macroaggression against them. And this is where we get into really dicey territory. This is where we move from walkouts to actual acts of physical violence in order to stop people from saying things that you don't like. This is where we move to, what people were doing in Cal State LA, where they were barricading doors and pushing around students who wanted to get in, so that students who wanted to come to a lecture that's just like this one had to be smuggled in 2 at a time by the police through a back door. That's because of microaggression culture. And let's be real. Half the things that people say are microaggressions, 90% of the things people say are microaggressions are not. It's not a microaggression to say he and she. It's not a microaggression to say you're colorblind. It's not a microaggression to ask somebody where they're from. Get over it, you're an adult, you can function in society, and if you can't, you're going to have a much harder life than you will if somebody says he or she to you. One of the big problems, though, is that the microaggression philosophy has now begun to overtake the entire left throughout the United States. So I'll tell you a bit of a fun story and to demonstrate how this is true. So, I don't know how many folks have seen this. About 6 months ago, I was on CNN Headline News with Dr. Drew. So I wouldn't expect very many people to have seen this because no one watches Dr. Drew. His ratings are terrible. And we were on to discuss, they had me on to discuss, I'm a pundit, so they had me on to discuss whatever the news of the day is. And the news of the day that day was Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner was being given an ESPN Heroism Award, and they were going to determine whether Caitlyn Jenner was in fact eligible for sainthood, whether a couple more miracles had to happen before the new pope would saint Caitlyn Jenner. And so they asked me to come on the program, and I've been very clear about my perspective on transgenderism. I don't believe there's a magical machine or surgery or injection that makes men into women, because that's stupid. And so I've been very clear about this. Sorry, welcome to Biology 101. So, And the idea here, this is my belief, backed by evidence, is that the problem is not, lots of evidence, is that the problem is not physical, the problem is mental. Which, by the way, the DSM felt until about 5 minutes ago. So, the fact is, this is my belief. You don't have to like the belief, obviously. Welcome to America. But herein lies the story. So, they have me on the panel, and as this is TV, and as Dr. Drew is lagging in the ratings, and as his producer is a former Jerry Springer producer, they decide that the best way to do this show will be to sit me on the panel next to a transgender person. Right? His name is Zoe Turk, who's a male to female transgender, formerly Bob Turk. And they knew my perspective going in on all of this. So the conversation commences, and everybody is they're having this wonderful, lovely conversation about whether Caitlyn Jenner should get the Medal of Honor or should actually be granted an honorary burial spot in Arlington National Cemetery for having committed the great act of heroism of having a surgery and hormonal injections. And so they finally come to me, and I said, I don't understand why we as a society are engaging in a mass delusion. This doesn't make sense to me. And everybody disagrees, which is fine. And the fellow next to me, who says he's a woman, he takes exception, and he says, well, you don't know anything about science, right? Just like some of the people here. And I said, well, I know about genetics, and I know that every cell in Caitlyn Jenner's body, ironically with the exception of some of his sperm cells, contains Y chromosomes. And this person says, well, he says, well, genetics, you can't argue on the basis of genetics. And I said, well, what are your genetics, sir? And it was the sir that set him off. Honest to God, it was not meant to elicit a response. It's just that when I see a man, I call him sir, and when I see a woman, I call her ma'am. In any case, I say, what are your genetics, sir? And this fellow, in a voice significantly deeper than my own, grasps me by the back of the neck and says, if you don't cut that out, you'll go home in an ambulance. Which, first of all, doesn't make sense because you don't go home in an ambulance. But this is all lead up to the punchline. So again, you can think that I'm a jackass, you can think what I'm saying is not true, that's fine, welcome to America, that's cool. What you can't do is what happened next. So the guy grabs me by the neck and commits what is technically an assault and battery on national television. And the entire panel, like all of them, it was me versus 7 people on the left, which makes it almost fair for them. And all of them universally immediately turn on me. Right? They don't say, cut that out, you can't do that on national TV, right? You can't meet words you don't like with physical aggression. And by the way, physical aggression continued to the point where they had to have security walk me out to my car because this guy was saying, none of this was ladylike behavior. And the entire panel turns on me because the idea is I'm the bad guy for having triggered this person. Right? This person goes online and later threatens to curb stomp me, and as he's walking out of the studio, turns to me and says, I'll meet you in the parking lot. And the point of the story being that for the left, the real problem with this whole situation was not the part where it actually crossed over into unwanted physical touching, the legal definition of battery, or the actual threats of doing physical violence. The real problem is that I had said sir. And again, you can disagree with me. You can think I'm a jerk. That's fine. I don't care, as you may notice. But we've now reached the point, thanks to the microaggression culture, where you don't agree with me means that you can use physical violence and force against me. And this is called totalitarianism. This is called fascism. Right? At University of Missouri, where I spoke in the middle of the debacle over University of Missouri, at the time I was going there, the police department had actually issued an edict that if somebody said something that was offensive to you, hurt your feelings, you should call the cops and make a report. Okay, that is actual, honest-to-goodness fascism. The first person who calls the guys with the guns in the middle of a political argument is the fascist. That's how you can tell. So, that finally brings us, once you have cleansed the world of all evil through trigger warnings and microaggression culture, now you've established the magical and ironically referred to safe space. So, once you get rid of all this, you've got your safe space. The only problem with the safe space is it's also an austere space. It's not a free space. In order for the space to be safe, it can't be free. You can't have freedom of speech in these safe spaces. At University of Missouri, the black students at University of Missouri, they created their safe space in the middle of their protest regime. And they demanded that all the white students, even people who agreed with them, especially people who agreed with them, not be let in because it would invade their safe space. It would violate their safe space for there to be any racial mixing at all. To which the KKK said, absolutely, let's do this thing. Because it turns out that the KKK is also for things that are both separate and equal. Here's the problem. Our colleges are creating an entire generation of mentally and emotionally stunted Americans. You're all being made into insane people by this stuff. Seriously, Jonathan Haidt is a psychologist over at New York University. He writes, the recent collegiate trend of uncovering allegedly racist, sexist, classist, and otherwise discriminatory microaggressions doesn't incidentally teach students to focus on small or accidental slights. Its purpose is to get students to focus on them and then relabel the people who have made such remarks aggressors. This is actually the opposite for people who are psych majors, they'll know this. This is the opposite of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the only really proven form of therapy to work, which is where somebody is having a chain of thoughts that leads to a bad depressive conclusion. What you have to do is you have to sit there and say, okay, where is this train of thought going wrong? Maybe the person wasn't microaggressing you, maybe you should really just give them the benefit of the doubt and not be quite so sensitive. Right? This is how you end up you can't have a free society without people accepting the fact that there will be conflict inside the society. And if you don't do that, you're making for a lot of very anxious and upset people, which is what's happening. I mean, there's a report from Brown University that the protests there were so bad, they were so upset about the protests over there, that students were actually requesting medication and also to get out of their finals. I mean, to be fair, most students are constantly requesting both of those things, but they were using the protests as an excuse for that. And more than that, it actually creates, this culture actually creates evil. So, there's a good book by a guy named Roy Baumeister, a very, very famous sociologist and psychologist, and he writes a book called Evil, Inside Human Violence and Cruelty. And he says, evil behavior generally springs from idealism that turns to violence, unjustified self-esteem, and hypersensitivity. Does any of this sound familiar? Right? He says, people who think they're better than they are, right, those are the dangerous ones. Hypersensitive people who think their pride is being assaulted are potentially dangerous. Even when a neutral observer would conclude that no serious provocation occurred, it is still important to recognize that in the perpetrator's own view, he or she was merely responding to an attack. Self-appointed victimhood, which is what all of this stuff boils down to. In the name of equality, self-appointed victimhood is very dangerous stuff. And it's going to have a really nasty impact, not just on campuses, but across the United States. There's a reason that 40% of people our age, 18 to 34, there's a reason that 40% of those people say that the federal government should begin enforcing crimes, should actually start prosecuting people for saying, quote, statements that are offensive to minority groups. So we should repeal the First Amendment, essentially, according to 40% of people our age. And if you poll people on college campuses about whether there should be rules on college campuses about such stuff, the number rises to well above 70%. America is the greatest place on the planet because we can still have discussions where we offend each other. America is also the greatest place on the planet because it's a place where if you act decently, your chances of success in life are good. And so throwing these two things over, free speech and decency, in favor of group identity politics and a regime that says you just shout racist and white privilege and trigger warning and microaggression at people, this is the surrender of the good for the evil. It's the surrender of freedom for tyranny. It's the surrender of liberty liberty to totalitarianism. That's something that we should all fight, because the truth is, these are things we should all unify around. Left, right, and center. This isn't even really a political point. If you're on the left, you should be for free speech, because who knows who's going to have the power next time? It may not be you. And if you're on the right, you should obviously be for free speech for the same reason. If you're on the left, you should be in favor of a system that promotes individual liberty, where your own skills are allowed to succeed in the marketplace and in the marketplace of idea. Because you are not going to succeed teaching your children that they are victims of an inherently racist system that, by the way, can never reach the utopian point where everything is cured. It just doesn't exist. The left will never rest because that utopia does not exist. We are in America. I mean, for all the problems I think America has, and I think we have a lot of them, America, for most of my life, has been as close to utopia on earth as anything that has ever been created by mankind. And to blow that away, to dump that, to blow that away in favor of divisive rhetoric and a feeling that you are morally superior because you get to rip your fellow man and enforce totalitarian measures against that fellow human being, that's the highest form of nastiness. We should all stand united on that. We should all stand together on that. Thanks so much. Happy to take questions.